I think you can have whatever you want, but it's at a cost. And as long as you're willing to pay that cost, then you can do it. But in relation to time blocking, I think you've got like you've got your weeks, but then you've also got, for me at least, I look at weeks and then a 6-month period, 12-month period, and a 5-year period. And you know, when I was 17 years old, it seemed like a lifetime, but I was like, oh, I'm already so old at the time. But I just wrote down on a piece of paper, by 25, I'll own a home, have my dream car, have my dream partner, and be happy. And I'm 27, so it was a couple of years later, but all of them are ticked off. And like, I wake up every day, I'm super happy doing something I really love. And have a partner that is just the most incredible woman that I've ever fucking met. And having somebody in your corner like that is legit a life hack. Like, you would know, man, like having a good partner is just a life hack. So I think when I look back and reflect, all of that was built off the discipline of saying, I want this in this period of time. And logistically, I would need to be making this amount of money each month. What skills do I have? How can I provide as much value as possible? And then deciding, like, in order to do that, I need to learn these skills. So I'm going to dedicate this 6 months to doing it. And I really do believe that most people have good intentions. I don't think most people sit down and look at what their last week was like. Because if I asked you, like, what did you do last week? If you rinse and repeated that for the next 6 months, you could pretty accurately tell me where you would assume to be. You know, like with your podcast stuff, if you kept doing podcasting for the next 6 months, you could pretty safely assume that your podcast would be much better, just given your nature and your willingness to learn. I think that's the same for everything in life, whether that be wealth, fitness, happiness, like your purpose, whatever it is. If I spend an hour with Emma every week for the next 6 months, what do you think the relationship will look like? You know, it would make sense if there was some sort of resentment or we didn't feel as connected. So I'm very mindful of that, and that's how I block out my time. We will decide that it's a season. And the cool thing having a partner and doing it together is you can decide on your seasons together as well. And Emma has supported me through quite a few working seasons, and almost like leveling up in the working seasons, you know, like going from what I thought was a sweet corporate job to running an agency, to our own startup company, to now like wanting that to keep booming whilst just solving complicated problems for other cool people that run businesses. Like, there's a lot of different seasons that you go through. And training seasons is a great example too, you know, like you might want to do, for me, it was like a 3-year stint of CrossFit, because I just identified that I didn't like how I looked and I wanted to get jacked. So I knew that I had to put a season in place. If you've ever been to a CrossFit gym, like my beliefs of a CrossFit gym were shattered. My beliefs were like, oh, it's where you get injured and people don't move safely and it's not sustainable. That's what I was telling myself. And then I showed up and there's this 50-year-old dudes that are absolutely crushing all the 20-year-olds and they're moving perfectly and they've sustained this for a 20-year period. So immediately all my beliefs are shattered and I'm like, okay, like make sure the story you're telling yourself is true. And then fast forward like 3 years later, we own it together. But it's that intentional time blocking that has worked for me on reflection. And, you know, like I sat down with my partner, Emma, recently because she's owns that Fuel Bakehouse store in Burleigh. So we both knew that if she was going to buy into that, it would be a significant chunk of work. And we could assume that for the next 6 months, it would be pretty much consuming. And we both made the decision, mindful of the impact of the relationship and our general well-being. Like, yes, it will be challenging. But again, if we make that decision and we rinse and repeat that behavior for a 6-month period, where do we expect to be? And I would say, based off the people involved and what we're doing, both of our businesses will be in a profitable position. And if I rinse and repeat that 6 months for 5 years, you know, like it makes logistical sense to me where we get financial freedom. And I know where that, and my definition of financial freedom is just a passive income where you don't have to show up for work. So I would say that's a lot closer than what I think it is, but you can make a pretty good educated guess of when that will be if you're doing things that lead to it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so then your weekly routine for me is broken down based off that. So I want a working season and I want to, whilst Emma's building the bakery and she's at work all the time, I want to take advantage of that. So I've shifted back into a working season, and I'll do that right up until the end of June, and then I'll reassess. I think it's super important to give yourself time. If you say, I'm going to do a working season and I want to learn X, Y, and Z, and I think I'll be roughly here, you have to stick to it. Like, you got to do the 6 month stint. When you finish it, because there's going to be lots of times throughout there where you're like, I don't want to work today, fuck this. And you know the feeling for training as well. Like, that's where the discipline first started. I don't want to get up this morning, it's cold, it's raining, I got to go jump in a pool, it's fucking 4:40 in the morning, I don't want to do this. But you've like made that commitment to yourself, and you know that you're going to see it through. I think that applies for like your fitness, health, especially business and wealth. And at the end of the 6 months, if you go, okay, well, I overshot that, that was too ambitious, I'm really burnt out, and I can't do that again. Well, you've learnt something. So the next time you decide to do that, you know that you can shuffle your weeks around a little bit differently so that you don't burn out, so that it is sustainable. And I think like going to the gym, when you're conscious of those reps that you're doing and you're conscious of what your weeks look like, you can actually build a really efficient, highly functioning routine around your strength. Most people couldn't handle what I do, but that's because I love each little part of it. I think finding those things you love is super important.
Wow, that's a lot of great information. Quick, let me see if I get it. So if you're able to look back at your last week and you know how much you've put in and you know where you are now, that can give you a rough estimate. If you do the same thing you've done in that week for the next 4 weeks, in a month time, you know roughly where you are, right?
Yeah.
Something like that you use for your 6 month then as well, right? You know how much you can do in 1 month. So you estimate, if I do this 6 times, then I know I can be there.
Yeah.
And if I stick to this, I know I can get there. And then when you, at the end, you reassess, see if it's sustainable long term, or if you can do it maybe even more, depends on what you find out after these 6 months. And would you say that it's very important there to find the balance in like because you said if you want something, then you have to pay something for it, right?
Yeah.
You can not always have everything.
100%.
So when you're in your working season, you know you're cutting away certain things.
Yep.
And that's why when your girlfriend is also in her working season, then you can both, you know that it's not forever.
Yep.
So you wouldn't have any like, sometimes you get that when you only spend like an hour or whatever, not enough with your partner.
Yeah.
It's a bit, what would you say, judgment? No, it's a bit
like a bit of resentment.
Resentment, that's the word. You wouldn't get that because you both know it's not forever.
It's important to set expectations because in my experience, resentment only comes when there's not clear expectations.
Yeah, resentments are expectations waiting to happen. No, what was the word? Resentment. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, resentment would, I'm not sure if there's a quote for it, but like to me, resentment would be like resentment would be unagreed upon expectations that are not met.
Yeah.
So if I say to you, like, I expect that we're going to have an hour of quality time every single night. That looks different for a lot of people, and a lot of people just expect it. We don't expect that, and we're not expecting that. And if we have 1 hour for dinner together, we're very present. There's no phones, there's no distractions, like we're present and together. And I think if you have aligned expectations, it's amazing the progress that you can make. Because for a lot of people, they need each other and they need that time together. If we have half an hour together, we're like best mates, you just catch up, have a laugh, like we're solid. But that's also a foundation that's been built over the last 8 years. Like we just unconditionally love each other and have worked through so much and built each other up as people. Like there's no one that even compares to her, like nobody remotely close. And I think when you have that, like the life hack, it allows you to just keep moving forward. So the sacrificing, like the cost that's associated is oftentimes seems very important in the moment, but on reflection, it wasn't. And that's why I think it's important to give yourself the ability to test. Like a lot of people, myself included, would finish work, go home, play video games, watch an episode of Netflix, watch a season of Netflix, eat some dinner, go to sleep. I would say my average afternoon through that uni period, like early days, was again, looking at that last week, so I wanted to do all these things, but I looked at the last week. I spent like X amount of hours gaming, X amount of hours on Netflix. They were awesome in the time, but what did they do for me after? And the brutal truth was nothing. That was really comfortable for me, and I really enjoyed that. And I thought that was our way of spending quality time together. Like, we would watch a movie together, and that was quality time. And I understand why people would think that, because you're comfortable. You're on a couch and you're comfortable together. You're watching something that doesn't require you to think. It's comfortable, it's relaxing. So I fully get that. But make sure that's a choice. You're like, I'm choosing to do this because it brings me comfort and we're spending time together. And if we do that, that's a choice that we make together. But a lot of the time, we would rather choose to have dinner and have no phones. It's harder initially to not want to go to the comfortable thing, but you connect deeper, you have a laugh. And if I asked you, like, if you had dinner with your partner for 30 minutes each night, or you watched a 30-minute episode of Netflix whilst you ate your dinner with your partner over a 6-month period, which one would you choose, and where do you think the relationship would be?
I would say I would be disconnected from my partner quite a lot, especially because you don't have that intimate moment of just the presence, like, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Like, just look each other in the eye. And
Super
like,
underrated, man.